Thank you for joining us. My name is Laura Bogley, and I serve as Director of Legislation for Maryland Right to Life. I'm joined tonight by several leading advocates for life, including those who actively defend human rights, civil rights, and women's rights. Together, we declare that the right to life is God-given, unalienable, and guaranteed by both the United States Constitution and the Maryland Constitution. A right to kill our children cannot coexist in the Constitution or in a just society. House of Delegates Adrian Jones has introduced House Bill 1171 to create a state constitutional right to fully funded elective abortion until birth in the name of reproductive liberty. But what Delegate Jones really means is taxpayer subsidized sexual freedom, that women somehow are entitled not to equal rights, but to extra rights to kill our own children, even after, through our own choices, we have already created new human life. That isn't freedom. That is just transferring your own perceived oppression onto your children. By making abortion a fundamental right, Maryland taxpayers will be forced to pay for all abortions. The amendment also would compel physicians, hospitals, and other healthcare providers to participate in abortion in violation of their rights of conscience and free exercise of religion. Finally, by passing this bill, the Maryland legislature will be infringing on the freedom of speech and participation guaranteed by the Constitution of the state of Maryland and the United States by barring all future attempts to pass life-saving legislation such as partial birth abortion or dismemberment bans. Maryland women already have access to legal abortion through all 9 months of pregnancy. At least 30,000 babies are killed through abortion each year in Maryland. In 2020, Maryland taxpayers funded $6.5 million for nearly 10,000 elective abortions. None of those abortions were committed due to rape, incest, or to save the life of the mother. But abortion zealots in the Maryland legislature, like Delegate Adrian Jones, want you to believe that girls and women, especially women of color, need more abortion. It is not enough for Delegate Jones that it is easier for women in Baltimore City to find an abortion clinic than a grocery store. It is not enough for Delegate Jones that more than half of all pregnancies of Black women in Baltimore City end in abortion. It is not enough for Delegate Jones that abortion is the leading killer of Black lives, more than all other causes of death combined. What Maryland women do not have is alternatives to abortion. And the vast majority of voters support programs that support the lives of both mothers and their children. Because of abortion distortion in the Maryland legislature, the state of Maryland is failing to provide for the legitimate reproductive health needs of Maryland women. The state is failing to ensure that women have access to quality health care through a licensed medical physician. The state is failing to ensure that abortion clinics are safe and in compliance with existing health regulations. The state is failing to address incidents of abortion-related maternal injury and death, or risks of future miscarriage, preterm birth, or loss of fertility. The state is failing to ensure that reproductive health education in our K through 12 public education system is medically accurate or age appropriate. State is failing to protect women and girls from abortion coercion, sexual abuse, and sex trafficking. The state is failing to invest in and promote life-saving alternatives to abortion, like quality prenatal care, the Maryland Safe Haven program to allow women to safely abandon their newborn children to a trusted adult without fear of criminal prosecution, or affordable adoption programs and foster care reform. Maryland women deserve better than abortion, and abortion distortion has no place in the Maryland Constitution or in a just society. So again, I want to take some time to introduce the brave advocates for life that are here participating with Maryland Right to Life tonight, starting with Patrina Mosley, Project 21 Advisory Board member. Patrina?
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here with you all today and to stand for life and really to stand for women. The pro-life movement has always been pro-women, telling her that you can, while those who claim to be in support of her and her are saying you can't. Those who support abortion and support women are really supporting themselves because abortion is convenient for them. Women do not want abortions. They want better circumstances. Women deserve better. Women often choose abortion because of all the pressure surrounding them. boyfriends, coaches, bosses, those who think they control careers, and even parents. But abortion only makes things easier for everyone else around her, not her. Pro-abortionists will say they support women and will move heaven and earth to get a woman to go and do the most unnatural thing she could ever do, even to use taxpayer dollars and write a state constitutional amendment rather than providing her with resources to make her circumstances better. I'm here to say to women that you deserve better. Women deserve better than abortion, and Black women deserve better than abortion. We deserve better than to be targeted by the genocide in chief Planned Parenthood, with over 80% of its meals in walking distance from our neighborhood, to give us 34% of all the abortions. Meanwhile, not telling us that our previous abortions are linked to our high maternal mortality rate, our preterm birth rates, and infertility. Moreover, abortion by chemical pills is the primary method where a woman is empowered to self-manage her own abortion. And this sounds a lot like back alley abortions, where she is the one who has to see the fetal remains of her child. She is the one who must dispose of the quick fix the abortionist and society promised her. The truth, it wasn't quick, physically or figuratively, but it was a quick way for others to deal with her, and a quick way for her to be silently damaged. To those women, we see you and we love you. You deserved better. To the state of Maryland, we say, do better. Instead of trying to get ahead of a life-affirming decision in Dobbs, how about you begin making plans to greater support motherhood and family building? Women can truly have it all, you know. Our pregnancy centers and activism for parenting students have been changing lives with over 50,000 professional and medical volunteers, countless hours, free to low-cost resources such as baby clothes, parenting classes, counseling, and access to Bible studies, because we know her spiritual needs are just as important as her physical needs. Policies such as this that wants to enshrine abortion in the state do not serve women or Black lives. You can do better. They can do better. The pro-life movement welcomes Maryland with open arms to join us in helping women truly succeed without compromise or regret. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patrina. So true, such true words. Thank you. I'd like to introduce now Ella Ennis, who is Legislative Chairman for the Maryland Federation of Republican Women. Ella?
Thank you, Laura. It is my privilege to be here with you all tonight. And I have to say that I think it is terribly sad that the Declaration of Rights of the Maryland Constitution is being used as the vehicle to take away the right to life of all preborn babies. The proposed constitutional amendment is written so broadly that it would allow abortion at any time until birth, and wording in the amendment would lead you to believe that it might even be extended beyond birth. The proposed constitutional amendment takes the power away to regulate abortion away from the elected officials, and it gives it to it takes it totally away and removes all existing health and safety measures for pregnant women. And it would force taxpayers to pay for abortions even when it is contrary to their personal beliefs or moral objections, without any regard given to the man without whose contribution the pregnancy would be impossible. As a nation, we have always held that parental responsibility begins at conception. Parental rights, both for the mother and the father, also begin at conception. No regard in this amendment is given to the resulting child. The US Supreme Court precedents have supported that generally it is medically accepted that by 24 weeks, a baby is viable. It can live outside the womb. And yet a woman could end her pregnancy without killing that child. That child could live outside the womb. And so even in the Supreme Court, they have said that the right to abortion is not unlimited, and that society should not abandon preborn children, especially when they have reached viability. And for all these reasons, I really believe that this House Bill 1171 should be defeated. It should not become a constitutional amendment. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for speaking in defense of our Constitution and Declaration of Rights. And now if I may ask Pastor Luke J. Robinson of Quinn Chapel AME Church to just say some words for us.
Thank you so very much.
Pastor Robinson, can you unmute, please?
Okay.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Pastor Luke J. Robinson of the Quinn Chapel African Methodist Episcopal Church here in Frederick, Maryland. It's a privilege of mine to be here at this virtual press conference to share some thoughts on this whole issue of abortion and the impact in particular that it's having on the African American community. I would say that we are in a very critical time in the history of our nation. It is a time when we cannot put off doing the right thing and doing it now. America is in jeopardy of total destruction, and the greatest enemy to its freedom, liberty, and the right to life are many of its elected officials. We have lost our moral compass, and we are adrift in the sea of moral and spiritual decay. We have become a nation that will fight to deny civil rights to children in the womb. The question is, where are the civil rights for these children? During the last 49 years, more than 65 million children have been killed by abortion. Now, what makes this sad for me personally, as a pastor of an African American church, it's sad because 1/3 of these 65 million kids, babies, I should say, children, have been, is due to the abortion of, I say, about 13% of 30% almost 27% of those aborted of that 65,000 belong to African Americans, who make up only 13.5, maybe 14% of the population. From my perspective, it's a genocide. It is really a genocide. When I look at what happened in New York, I look at the statistics from what was going on in 2012. In 2012 in New York, out of every 100 abortions, impregnations, I should say, by African Americans, 50% of those babies was killed. That's a tragedy. That's genocide. We're at a point in our community where abortion is impacting us so much that we are not replacing ourselves. And if it wasn't for abortion, and I want the African American leaders, legislators to understand, if it wasn't for abortion, African Americans would still be the largest minority in this country, and without doubt. But we have killed our children. Now, at 50%, out of every 100 children, 50 die. Out of 10,000 children, what is that? 50,000, 100,000, 50,000 die. That is a lot of children to die, and it's genocide. We are in a tragedy right now. We have lost our moral compass, and we are adrift in a sea of moral and spiritual decay. We have become a nation that will not fight to defend these children. I repeated that because it's so crucial. we must be involved in these children's lives and saving them because of who they are. The new agenda is one of ungodliness and deception. It would choose to be called a health care plan. But as one of our dear sisters has already said, she said that there's a thing called pause. Pause is a post-abortive syndrome. And in this situation, many women go through the pain and anguish of having taken their lives. What we don't see sometimes is the impact of abortion that it has on the lives of people. One day in my church, I preached on the sermon on abortion. And I said, Lord, I think they're going to put me out of here, but I'm going to preach it anyway. I said, Lord, I don't think anybody's going to pay attention to what I'm talking about because that many times they'd be shut off. So there was one lady in our church, relatively young lady, and she came to the altar. I said, if there was anybody here that's going through because they had an abortion and they are suffering from the post-abortive syndrome, the emotional trauma after they have gone through this thing. And so what happened was a woman came and she said, she had told herself this: the Sunday Pastor Robinson preached about this, I'm going to go up before this congregation and tell everybody what I have done. She was a well-respected young lady. She was in the 30s or 40s at this time. Well-respected. Nobody would have thought such a thing. And she came up and said, if he ever mentions this thing, I will confess it before everybody. Wow. That was a tremendous situation for her to do. Another lady, we prayed at the end of the service, and we said to the congregants that were there, well, some of you may be a little hesitant about coming and praying, but what I would want you to do, I'm going to pray for you because God loves you, and abortion is not the unpardonable sin. God wants to forgive you. God wants to make you whole. And so as a result of that, if you pray and the traumas you're going through in life as a result of having one, he will forgive you. You need to know that. We need to teach women and men in some cases that they can be forgiven. Now, this woman did not let me know that she had had this abortion. But one Sunday she came back to church, and this is what she said. She said to the congregation, the Sunday Pastor Robinson preached about this abortion thing. She said, oh, I was tore apart. She said, but I prayed with him and those in the church who was praying for people who were going through the trauma. You know what happened to me? She said, the baby that I had aborted some 20-some years ago stopped crying that night. Abortion has a tremendous impact on women, has a tremendous impact on the men, has a tremendous impact on our nation, and again, on the African-American community. It is a traumatic, it is a destructive force. We have women who have been destroyed by this because the lie that somehow it's the woman's right to choose. Now, let me read what God says about it, and we need to just take a look at God. I think he's the one we should look at. God hates the shedding of innocent blood. And right now in our state house in Maryland, we got African legislators who are supporting something that is tremendously destroying the African-American community. It is genocide in our community. Not only in New York was it was a 50% abortion was killing out of every 100 impregnations in the African-American, 50% was aborted. That's tremendous. But even in the Hispanic community, 40% out of every 100 was aborted. So abortion is a terrible thing. And God is saying this, God hates the shedding of innocent blood. He hates the shedding of innocent blood. Ain't no question about it. He's not for it. He's not going for it. And God's going to hold us accountable. The nation's going to be destroyed because of our walking away from God, of us not doing what God would have us to do and stopping this thing. So I am torn up by what's going on with our community. And I am torn up by those in our community who are African Americans and who are legislators and not doing anything. And many of us go to church. Many African Americans go to church, and our legislators go to church. But when it comes to abortion, they blink an eye. In many cases, they blink an eye because it's they want the how you would say, I guess they want the money that is paid to them to supposedly help their members in the community that they represent. But the point of the matter is they are killing their own people. That sounds terrible. God says, I hate the shedding of innocent blood. So if God hates it, you and I ought to hate it as well. There was another scripture God was saying, I don't seem to have it before me, but I wish I had. But God is saying to us, we must be on board with saving their lives. Not only, the question is asked now, does Black lives matter? Sure they do. They matter when they're in the womb as well as when they're out of the womb. And God will hold us accountable for not protecting them. So I want to encourage all legislators to reconsider any effort to make Maryland a slaughterhouse for the killing of children. I want to encourage all the legislators to pray and ask God to help us. Because as it relates to my community, the African-American community, we are in trouble. We are dying by abortion. And so tonight, I pray for America. I pray for Maryland. I pray that we turn away from this horrible, destructive pattern that we have of killing people for the benefits of our own and not for the benefits of those children. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Pastor Robinson. And thank you for speaking truth in love to the members of your congregation and also speaking truth to power to the members of the Maryland General Assembly. It's very, very needed right now. Thank you so much for your leadership.
God bless you.
I'd like to introduce Kathy Kelly, Director of Democrats for Life of Maryland. Kathy.
Hello, I'm going to read you my short 2-minute testimony, but since there was a development today, I'll mention that. I was contacted by the Maryland General Assembly and told I will not be allowed to speak, even though I registered to testify right at the beginning of the window of time in which that was allowed. So that could have something to do with the fact that I am a relative of the delegate proposing HB1171. It could have something to do with the fact that I am the director of Democrats for Life of Maryland. And it could have something to do with the fact that they don't want to hear about the groundswell of pro-life Democrats that's happening in this country, including the 80 who were elected across the US in the November 2020 elections. So here's the testimony I will not be allowed to give tomorrow. Democrats for Life of Maryland, which is a chapter of Democrats for Life of America, opposes HB0937, the Abortion Care Access Act, sponsored by Delegate Ariana Kelly and other delegates. Democrats for Life of Maryland has been closely following some gruesome abortion injuries to women, which occurred at a late-term abortion facility in Bethesda, Maryland during 2020. That is a practice owned and operated by a licensed physician. We are concerned that HB0937, which would loosen restrictions on who can provide abortions, will lead to more threats to women's health as more abortions are left to the oversight of non-physicians. In addition, we object to the proposed establishment of an abortion care clinical training program in the Maryland Department of Health and the annual appropriation of $3.5 million to fund it. We ask, why is there not a proposal for a well-funded comprehensive pregnancy and post-pregnancy aid program for women with crisis pregnancies instead? We are concerned that the bill prevents the Department of Health from releasing the name of anyone administering services through the clinical training program, which could hinder public information requests about program deficiencies and injuries. We are also concerned that this bill would protect abortion providers from civil damages or criminal penalties, which is yet another preference for protecting abortionists rather than women. These issues point to a need for more, not fewer, restrictions on abortion for better protection of women's health in Maryland. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you for sharing your experience. I think it's important for people to understand the kind of pressure that pro-life Democrats in Maryland are under from leadership who wants to suppress that pro-life speech. And I think it's important to bring attention to that because we elect them to represent us. And when they are denied a voice, we are denied our voice. So it's important to bring awareness and light on that subject. Thank you so much.
One quick thing. We make masks, but today it's a muzzle because they're not letting me speak tomorrow.
Very apropos, but unfortunate. I'm sorry, Kathy. We have to stick together, all of us united for life. Thank you so much. I want to invite a good friend who's been testifying on several bills with us throughout the years, a brave advocate for life. That's Mr. Al Moulton from Huber Memorial Church in Baltimore. Al?
Hey, good evening. As you say, I'm Al Moulton. First of all, I want to say that abortion at any stage in the state of Maryland, whether it's first trimester or second trimester, has no place in this society whatsoever. It's a direct attack against a defenseless human being, an immoral, inhumane, ungodly crime to me. I'm a sidewalk advocate, several days a week downtown at Planned Parenthood on Mulberry and Howard Streets, where I encounter women coming in and out of those facilities. And it's just a shame to see the look of guilt, fear in these women's eyes before they get to the door and cross the street. We encounter escorts down there to try to keep us from talking and praying with these women. And the men that escort them there sometimes and offer these men, drop them off and just leave them to fend for themselves. And then they show up late, a few hours after the crime is done. And then when the women come out after the abortion, the look of guilt, it's just horrifying to see the tears in their eyes. I even seen a guy drag a woman across the street with blood running down her legs after the surgical abortion. And it was just a horrifying sight to see. And for anyone to push this type of inhumane act against a defenseless child that can't defend itself, we like the pastor said, we lost our morality. There's no morals anymore in this society. Anything and everything goes. So it's my sincere prayer that we will have House Bill 1171 thrown out altogether, period, along with any bill relating to abortion, whether it's a 24-week gestation or 34 weeks. And now you're talking about aborting a child, up to 9 months or any time during the pregnancy. My Lord, have mercy on these children. And it's over 62 million now, since 1973, Roe versus Wade and counting. And like Pastor said, the shedding of innocent blood will always bring the shedding of more innocent blood. That's how God operates. The further you move away from biblical values, the more you invite chaos, confusion, and you allow the enemy to have his way. And in these last and evil days, we have to take back the right for children to live, because, in the Bible, God said, for I know the plans I have for you, not to harm you, but to prosper you. And he told Jeremiah before he came forth from the womb, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, I sanctified you, meaning I set you apart. He has a plan for that child, just like he had a plan for each and every one of us looking at this screen right now. And Lord knows what that DNA and that child that we abort every day, what that child could have been. Because in every living organism, there's DNA, and that DNA is for that one specific child that God has a special plan for. And we just taking it away like it's not nothing. So please reconsider House Bill 1171 and all the rest of the bills pertaining to taking an innocent life. It's just not right. You all know it and we know it. We praying that these things will stop and cease in our state as well as around the country. Thank you.
Well, amen to that, Al. And I think Al's testimony is so important because There are several laws being introduced in Annapolis to attack and suppress and put out of business people like Al, who pray with women who are trying to make their abortion decision, who do all sorts of support work, whether through crisis pregnancy centers or otherwise through church organizations to help women facing unplanned pregnancies. And these bills are trying to put all of these good people, volunteers, out of business and suppress that pro-life speech. And this bill, House Bill 1171, proposed by Delegate Adrian Jones, would also make those good people potentially subject to legal action for discrimination, because abortion will then be considered a fundamental right. So anything we do to try to help women to make a life-affirming choice could be actionable as discrimination if this bill gets passed. So very dangerous, intended to suppress pro-life speech and action and good people like Al who are trying to save lives. So thank you for your testimony, Al.
You're
And
welcome.
finally, I want to go to a representative of the pro-life generation, our friend Michelle Hendrickson for Students for Life Action. Michelle.
Excellent. Thank you for having me. Students for Life, we've got groups in all 50 states on more than 1,300 middle, high school, college, medical, law campuses. We are everywhere. About 30 of those groups are right here in Maryland, and we strongly oppose House Bill 1171 and all of the other pro-abortion bills like it that you've heard about tonight. House Bill 1171, it is set to trap Marylanders into a system of abortion violence enshrined in our Constitution for generations. This bill is dangerous. We know abortion ends the life of an innocent human being, and we see that many people in our country are actually progressing forward beyond this. We're watching other states move away from extreme abortion laws that allow this violent procedure through all 9 months. Yet the proponents of House Bill 1171 would have us go backwards, to the lie that preborn people in the womb do not exist. House Bill 1171 has us go backwards to the lie to women that we must sacrifice our children to achieve our goals. But we know the truth that life in the womb is undeniable, that resources to support women and families, they are widely available. In fact, you can go to www.standingwithyou.org right now. It's an initiative of Students for Life where you enter your zip code and you can find resources available near you that help you through your pregnancy and parenting journey. They're available widely through Maryland and all 50 states. We're just here to equip women with what we know is out there and exists to help her in her pregnancy journey and beyond. This bill is also dangerous for women, removing further accountability for the abortion industry, which we know it's already gravely lacking in our state. There's already a lack of accountability for those performing abortions currently. As Kathy from Democrats for Life already mentioned, late-term abortionist Leroy Carhart, he is still operating here in Maryland despite being in the midst of a lawsuit after a woman in his facility actually woke up from her anesthesia mid-abortion. She was crying out as her uterus was perforated. And later she found out that parts of her baby were still left inside of her. That is graphic. That is heartbreaking. And it is the reality of House Bill 1171 and other pro-abortion legislation. That is the reality that those types of bills are ready to bring here in Maryland and continue here in Maryland. But it doesn't have to be that way. We can and we must call upon our legislators to recognize the danger of this bill and not let it pass any further. And I know this looks grim, but I do have hope. We have a saying at Students for Life that we are the pro-life generation, and we say it because we are. We know that each generation is more pro-life than the last. In fact, in recent polling, you can read through at the Dimitri Institute for Pro-Life Advancement, the majority of millennials and Gen Z, about 58%, actually oppose abortion through all 9 months. Oppose it. They're against it, which is what House Bill 1171 would allow. Millennials and Gen Z are now almost 1/3 of our voting bloc, and we are calling on our representatives to hear us. Do not secure a fate that does not represent us, that does not represent these students, your voters. This bill, House Bill 1171, it is about to be a tragic catalyst of division in our state and a catastrophic precedent for years to come if we do not stop this. More lives will be lost, more women harmed, with zero accountability to the abortion industry. So if we value women and if we value life here in Maryland, then we should all be opposed to House Bill 1171. Thank you.
Thank you, and go pro-life generation. I think it's so important what Michelle said, that this policy, Speaker Adrian Jones' bill, is regressive, it is oppressive, and it is coercive. So Michelle, if you could just one more time, we know students are being preyed upon in schools, not only through K through 12 and through school-based health centers in Maryland in high school, but also on college campuses, where the pro-aborts have a much greater presence and they're getting taxpayer-funded grants to be there. So if you could just take time, I think it's so important to just repeat that website again for your program to support pregnant students.
Yep, standingwithyou.org. And so what that is you can find resources locally, and we invite college students to actually turn in resources available on their college campuses. So we make campus resource guides. That way, if you are pregnant and in school, we want to make sure that you're able to stay in school and that your school is following their Title IX policies that they probably have in place, or help you pass better policies if your campus isn't structured that way. A support system for college students and beyond into our communities.
That's great, Michelle. Thank you so much. Now, before we leave tonight, we heard some really helpful information. We heard some hopeful information. We also heard some reasons why we all need to be concerned. So what I need from everyone tonight is I need you now that you know the truth, to take action. Maryland Right to Life makes it very easy for you to communicate with your elected officials. Reach out to Speaker Delegate Adrian Jones and to other leaders, to your elected officials, and let them know that you oppose House Bill 1171 and any attempt to expand abortion and abortion funding in the state of Maryland. So we make it quick and easy for you. Just enter your name and address on our website and it will automatically generate a letter to your elected officials. And they need to hear from you so you can be a voice for the voiceless and a voice for women in the state, who many of our speakers have said are really in need of improved services from the state of Maryland. We can and must do better. So you can go in the next couple of days, this week preferably, the sooner the better, to www.mdrtl.org/take action, or just go to our main website, mdrtl.org. There's a take action tab at the top. Click on that and it will show you all of the bills, or not all of the bills, but the bills that we're going to be fighting this week in Annapolis. Now's the time to take action, submit your letter to your elected officials, and then let us know. Reach out to Maryland Right to Life and let us know that you took action. Let us know if you want to subscribe to additional information. We have information about all of the bills that we're opposing and the bills that we're supporting on our legislation page. And we have several pieces of good pro-life legislation that have been introduced by brave pro-life legislators in Maryland. We want more of that, but they need to know that they have your support. So also reach out. You can also call. There's a tool there for calling your elected officials. Let them know the bills that you oppose and the bills that they support. And that's all that we have for tonight. Thank you for taking the time for our press conference. And we wish you all blessings and health and safety. Thank you.